Hi there, and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. On the show tonight, community forums are underway for Chicago's next police superintendent, the latest in that search. An art installation reclaiming some difficult Chicago history is in full bloom in Southside Washington Park. In our Black Voices book club, what happened when author Rachel Jamison Webster discovered a famous black scientist in her family tree?
It takes a community to raise a child.
Doesn't it, though? And the program provides support and encouragement for young moms in East Garfield Park. All that coming up, but our first story tonight, Chicago has an interim top cop, but how's the search for a permanent superintendent coming along? An update right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
The search is underway for Chicago's next police superintendent. This as Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson selects Fred Waller to lead the Chicago Police Department until a permanent superintendent is chosen. Until then, the city's Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability is in charge of recommending 3 candidates to Mayor-elect Johnson by July 14th. The commission has already had a few forums across the city to get input from residents. Joining us with the latest on this are President of the Commission, Anthony Driver, and Commissioner Ramel Terry. Thanks to you both for joining us again. Ramel, let's start with you, please. We know that you are still in the outreach part of the process. You've got a 4th forum happening this week, or you had one this past week. How would you say they've been going?
They've been going extremely well, and thank you so much for having us on to give us an opportunity to speak about this. We've received a lot of support for these forums, which is why we've had to expand them beyond the 4 that we initially planned. So we have about 3 additional. Residents are very excited about this process and for being heard, and we're excited to have them be a part of it.
Anthony Driver, same question to you. How would you say this process has been going so far?
I think it's been going amazing. The amount of feedback we've been able to gather, our smallest attendance has been 150 people, and that was actually our virtual one. And you know, people are coming out, they're making their voice heard, they're sharing personal testimonials and what they'd like to see in our next superintendent, which is very helpful for us. We'll actually take those questions and ask them directly to superintendent candidates.
Have you been surprised at all by what you've heard at some of these forums?
I mean, some of it was expected, but yes, I have. I did not expect the outpouring of personal stories for people who are telling very intimate details of their life and experience with policing. There's a dominant narrative that's out there, but it's been across the board. Residents have expressed views that are not necessarily shared publicly in the media a lot. And I think that was also something that was very interesting and surprising.
What would you say some of those views are that you feel like don't get heard so much?
Yeah, residents who want a superintendent who's present, residents who have expressed that they wanted to make sure that the rank and file is brought into the process, someone that they can trust, someone who will put their voice first. I've heard mostly that folks want somebody who's engaged and who is a leader, that there's been a real lack of leadership in the department and they want that to change.
Chicago Tonight, we attended one of those commission forums in Auburn Gresham, and here's a little bit of what one attendee had to say.
2 words that I keep hearing, and I have kept hearing for the past 4 years, is transparency and accountability. I have not heard the word responsibility. So when you put all 3 of those words together, that's when you have a viable community. That's when you have an understanding amongst each other.
Anthony, what kind of emotions are you sensing at these forums?
Yeah, people are passionate. That is the one thing that's clear. At every forum, 40 or 50 people come up to the microphone and they make their voice heard. I've had people who've been directly impacted by police violence, folks who've been directly impacted by community violence, folks who've lost loved ones, and as they come and make their voice heard, many times you see people, actually shed a tear or get very emotional. So I think the community is very, very, very passionate about these issues.
So as we mentioned earlier, Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson selected Fred Waller to lead the department until a permanent superintendent is chosen. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
We must also be mindful of the relationships between the department and the communities we serve. We must rebuild trust, and we must rebuild morale in the department. We can and will do both.
Now, Mayor-elect Johnson has said that Waller will not be a candidate to serve in the position permanently. Ramel, remind us, though, what it is that you're looking for in a permanent superintendent, and have your sort of list of needs changed at all over the course of these forums?
I think our needs are really consistent with what we've been hearing from the community and even some of the officers or those in leadership that we've spoken with. We really want someone who has strong morals, who is an effective leader, because we do need to ensure that officers inside of the department are willing to follow this person. That is very important. And what we're also looking for is someone who is able to pull together community. As interim Superintendent Waller mentioned, we want to be able to establish trust within neighborhoods, because what we are hearing at the forums are that community residents do want to work collaboratively with officers. And so this is an opportunity for us to ensure that we have a candidate that both possesses the ability to effectively lead as well as bring the community together.
Ramel, there's been some concerns that Mayor-elect Johnson has been trying to influence or have a say in the process. What's your response to that?
Well, I'm not familiar with Johnson having any say in our process personally. I know that he has taken, personal privilege to express how he feels in the media, which is his full right to do so. But the great thing about this commission, which we always speak about, is that we are independent. We are not a part of an administration. And so we still get to be the foremost authority in making this election with the input of all the stakeholders. So I'm excited that everyone has thoughts about this, but as a commission, we will definitely be making this decision independently.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I've spoken with Mayor-elect Johnson and also members of his transition team, and can 1,000% say unequivocally that they have not tried to influence our process in any way. If anything, they've reached out to figure out how they can be helpful.
Chicago's Police Oversight Agency released a video of a police officer fatally shooting a 24-year-old man in Garfield Park last month, and we're looking at a bit of that now. I know that you all are not able to speak to specific cases. Ramel, though, what are your thoughts about the length of time that it takes for COPA, the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, to release body cam footage in police shootings? Do you think we're seeing any progress?
I do think that we've seen progress over the years with COPA. They've done a better job with getting information out, also making sure to engage family members and things of that nature with bringing them in and giving them an opportunity, if they desire, to see the video prior to it being released to the public. So we have seen improvements in the various entities, and that, for the most part, is what I would say. We're looking forward to seeing further improvements as the commission gets to work better and more closely with these various entities and making sure they're meeting their goals, which timeliness is one of those things.
So you all have a deadline of nominating candidates coming up July 14th. And Ramel, we've got about 30, sorry, not Ramel, Anthony, we've got about 30 seconds left. Kind of, what's the next step for you all after you take in all of this information? And at what point do you start assembling that list of candidates and narrowing them down?
So the application deadline is May 7th. As of this morning, we had 17 applications. I expect that number to increase before the Sunday deadline. On Monday morning, we'll hold a press conference where we'll update the public on the number of applications. We will immediately start whittling that list down and calling people in for interviews, and trying to move as expeditiously as possible to get Mayor-elect Johnson those 3 names before the deadline of July 14th. All
right, Monday. We'll look forward to hearing more from you all then. Ramel Terry and Anthony Driver, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
First-time motherhood comes with a lot of joy, but it also comes with a lot of work. And for young moms, raising a baby while still growing up themselves is all the more challenging. For 40 years, Marillac St. Vincent's Project Hope program has combined prenatal support and parenting classes to help lift up young mothers on the West Side. And they say it's an approach that saves lives. Producer Erica Gunderson has the story.
Where is Thumpkin? Where is Thumpkin? Here I am. Here I am.
As program manager at Marillac St. Vincent Family Services in East Garfield Park, LaRhonda Castanet plays a lot of roles. But she says her most important role is chief cheerleader.
I think people would be surprised to know about the resiliency of the young moms, how they do learn to be good mothers, learn to take very good care of their children, learn to help them with their schooling, their education.
The moms and babies Castanet is cheering on are participants in Project Hope, a program that supports young mothers through their pregnancies and beyond. The prenatal support comes from doulas like Lenice Washington, who says a big part of her job is helping young moms use their voices.
Our participants are younger, so therefore they are hesitant in speaking up for themselves, or they don't know what to say, or they're just scared. And so we encourage them to speak, and we teach them through prenatal class. We also fill out a birthing plan, how they want their birth to happen, how they want the labor and delivery to go. Once they have their babies, they have to tell their story. They would have to tell the beginning to the end of labor and delivery. And when they write it out and they think about what they wrote and they say, oh my God, I did all of this? Yes, you did.
Once the babies arrive, the care continues through regular parenting classes and peer support groups.
They learn things like how to interact with their child according to their age. Proper nutrition is another thing we focus on, how to read to your child, how to choose appropriate books for your child, how to use age-appropriate discipline. We also work with the mothers to help them with coping skills, things they need to survive in the community on their own and be able to support their families.
Castanet and Washington say over the years, Project Hope has seen many big success stories, but it's the little ones that mean the most.
We had a mom who was homeless, and she was able to get an apartment. She was able to get her GED. She has two beautiful young girls, and when she came and told us about her success, she was so excited. We've been very fortunate that we haven't lost any moms in childbirth in the 40 years. We haven't lost a child either in childbirth. So that says a lot.
It's a new baby in this world, and a new mom that understands I have a child. I have to take care of my child, and I have help. I'm not by myself, I have help.
And that's really good because, it takes a community to raise a child, and when they can find a place where they're comfortable and they're safe, it means a world of difference.
For Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, this is Erica Gunderson.
The doula you just heard from, Lenice Washington, also offers prenatal support for young incarcerated moms in a Cook County program. You can find more on her experience with that program on our website. Up next, we speak with a local author who discovered a famous ancestor in a conversation recorded earlier. Americans are discovering family secrets every day thanks to DNA testing and online genealogy. But not everyone learns they have a luminary of Black American history as an ancestor. However, that was the case for author Rachel Jamison Webster. She had been unaware of her Black ancestry until she discovered she was related to scientist and almanac author Benjamin Banneker. In her new book, she details how she used genealogical research and collaborated with some newfound cousins to dive into her family's racial history and recreate ancestors' stories. It's called Benjamin Banneker and Us, 11 Generations of an American Family. And joining us now is author Rachel Jamison Webster, who's also a professor of creative writing at Northwestern University. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So how did you come to learn about your familial relationship with Benjamin Banneker?
Well, it was always a family story. So my cousin was doing research on Ancestry.com, and then she was doing her own genealogy, and she discovered that we had generations of African American and multiracial ancestors that had been denied in our family line. So she, of course, wanted to look through that line that other people hadn't examined. And when she looked there, she started turning up these incredible stories. So some of our ancestors had come into Ohio and argued for the right for an education for their children. And then going back further, we descended from Benjamin Banneker's sister, Jemima.
Were you surprised?
I was not as surprised as you'd think to learn that we had African American ancestry. I felt sort of I felt like it explained some of my affinities and the kinds of communities I've loved to live in. So I felt happy about it and interested in it. Of course, to find a connection to, as you say, a luminary and someone as brilliant and amazing as Benjamin Banneker, that felt like a lot to take in.
So you've got to live up to that, right?
Yes.
In your process, you met and you came to know a lot of your cousins. What did that mean for you to be able to do that?
That was everything. So I found these stories. I wanted to write about them. Any writer would. But I also felt that it was problematic for a white woman to be claiming a famous black ancestor. So I had a pause of a few years where I did research and I really thought about my way into the story. And then my cousin Edie got in touch with me. She saw a little essay that I had written and said, "We need to talk about our family." And as soon as Edie and I began speaking, it was like we knew each other, and I understood this would be the forum for the book. So it would have history, but it would also have present-day conversation with my black cousins. So she introduced me to the rest of the family, and we started talking, and it's been amazing. We're very close. We're involved in projects together still, and it's been wonderful.
Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned your cousin Edie. Tell us a little bit about how Edie, some of your other cousins, were incorporated into the storytelling and how that kind of helped you navigate how to tell the story.
Exactly, because I wanted to write about Black history, and I also wanted to explore the laws and the way the laws were set up to basically create divisions and create this fallacy that we weren't related. I wanted to explore all of that, but I also knew that I couldn't write from the experience of being a Black American. So I was in conversation with my cousins, and they very generously shared stories from their lives, they shared the oral histories, and then they shared their own research. So the book has a lot of research chapters about the ancestors, and then every other chapter is a present-day conversation with me and my cousins.
The book tells a lot of women's stories, including that of Banneker's mother. What can you tell us about who she was?
She was amazing. She was a healer. She was an herbalist. They owned land, so they were free people of color. And Benjamin Banneker, he's growing up in the Revolutionary era, and he's this brilliant scientist and naturalist, and his mother was as well. So she was known to be an herbalist and someone who knew how to heal people in the community. She grew food and sold it at the mill in the area, so she was also very enterprising. And his sisters were as well. His sister Minta was the seamstress, another sister was the midwife in the area. So because he became famous in his lifetime, we have stories about his family members, and that's what's especially, that became very special, to be able to write about the women.
It's part memoir, part investigation, part documentation of oral history, part speculative history. That's a lot. Why did you want to take that approach?
I wanted to honor different ways of knowing. So we are very lucky, especially for a multiracial family or a family of Black ancestry, to be able to document this family very far back. At the same time, we have oral histories, and the oral history is so important in Black traditions, as you know, because that was a way to preserve the family memories. So I wanted to honor all of that, and then I wanted to bring the ancestors alive and have them sort of be filled out. And oftentimes it would just happen that Edie would be talking through the names and the dates, and I would be having a feeling of a scene. So it was a joy to imagine them.
You and the cousins that you've gotten to know through this process, they are, you know, they're like family now that you know them, obviously, and they are family technically as well. But you've had to have, you know, some of those difficult but honest conversations about race. What have those conversations been like? What have they meant?
I'm so grateful to them because I don't think many of us get to be in conversations that honest. So of course there was a group, most of the family were really happy that I was writing the book and trusted the collaborative process. And then there were some family members who really didn't trust me as a white woman. And that's in the book as well. And grappling with that and looking at the history of why that happens. I mean, that's not necessarily personal, it is because of a long history of white exploitation of Black stories. So we put that in, we put the tense moments in, the embarrassing moments, but also the loving moments, and the moments when we knew, we really felt deeply that we are related and we were meant to be working on the book together. But we sort of decided that it all had to be part of the story. You can't write and talk about race without some pain. We can't do it perfectly, but we can try to make a space to do it honestly.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. We've got about 30 seconds left. Most of us can probably trace our lineage and find a bunch of mixed ancestry. What does your family's story say about this country in about 30 seconds?
I think we are so related. As you said, most of us have mixed ancestry. I do think that the white Americans need to embrace that and face that a little more. I think that my cousins on the Black side, they already knew that about the ancestry. They had thought about what that means to have mixed ancestry in this country, what that means in terms of history. But now I think it's for all of us.
For many family members, not just the Black family members. Rachel Jamison Webster, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Again, the book is called Benjamin Banneker and Us, 11 Generations of an American Family, and you can read an excerpt on our website. Back with more Chicago Tonight Black Voices right after this. Last fall, artist Amanda Williams and a small army of friends and neighbors participated in an act of faith and reclamation in the Washington Park neighborhood. Together, they planted 100,000 red tulip bulbs in the footprints of nearly 24 buildings and homes that once stood there. The project, titled Redefining Redlining, is now in full bloom around the intersection of 53rd and Prairie Avenues. It's meant to represent the intrinsic value and beauty in Black communities. Here's more from the artist.
Just from a color standpoint, red is always going to be arresting. And, you know, to get very dorky, it's the complement of green. So, you know, in a field of green, that red is the color that's going to pop the most. So just from an aesthetic standpoint, you know that it will always work. And then from a conceptual standpoint, it was, you know, it was a must to kind of emphasize the idea of redlining and give people other images to think about in relationship to that term. Sometimes I'll come upon a vantage point of it that I didn't expect or didn't realize intersects with it. So I'll pull over or I'll stop and someone will say, "Can you believe it?" Or "Isn't that beautiful?" Or "I love that red that you can see in the distance." And I had a woman yesterday actually come and introduce herself and say, "You know, I walk out of my door and I see this and it just changes my whole day." It's a cross section of private and public ownership. The city has several parcels that are kind of interspersed. There's different owners of, you know, along that intersection. You know, it hasn't been improved upon thus far. I don't really see any rush on any of their parts to develop it. But there is an ephemerality about it that then also means if that were to happen, do people feel empowered to push back in a way that they wouldn't had something just started this spring? You know, we got a lot of comments from people saying, we put a sign up finally. I was kind of resistant, but that kind of explains the project, it was just so tight and on point. Neighbors assumed that it was a development company. And it's like, no, it's just me. You know, they said, well, who do you work for? It's like, just me. So that's also really interesting to think about who people think good things are for. Who is good design for? Who are interesting art projects for? Who is beauty for? You know, like this answers that, but it also brings to the fore that people still feel a discomfort or still feel a suspicion, rightfully so, because they've spent their whole lives being lied to or disappointed or not invested in. So this is one tiny step that then needs the proof, right, of coming back and coming back and coming back. And then we can start the conversations about how to improve these conditions.
Amanda Williams also developed a robust set of educational resources related to this project, all available for free download on the project website. And you can find more on that on our website. And that's our show for tonight. Be sure to check out WTTW.com/news for the very latest from WTTW News. And if you're watching us on Friday night, know that you can also catch Black Voices and Latino Voices on Saturdays beginning at 6 p.m. And join me and Paris Schutz next week at 5:30 and 10 on Chicago Tonight. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is proud to recognize its 18 attorneys selected for the 2023 Super Lawyers List.